How's everybody doing tonight? My name's Milo Hay. I'm coming from Denver, Colorado.
My name is Kay Campbell. I'm coming from Seattle, Washington.
And this is West 'em Up. It's a AFC show podcast from All American or Armchair All Americans. Always seem to get that wrong. But we pretty much were bringing you the reviews from last week's action, previews for this week's action, and the biggest news. So we'll start with the biggest news. What have you heard, Kate?
The biggest news I've heard for the AFC West this week, going on to next week, is the Oakland Raiders. They're thinking about changing locations for the game coming up against the Los Angeles Chargers this coming Sunday. What do you think about that, Milo?
I mean, with all those wildfires going on in North California right now, it seems like that could possibly be something that actually happens. And, you want the best air quality you can get, of course, for not only the players but the fans as well. So if it does happen, I wouldn't be too surprised.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either if that happens. And, they're both California teams, so I think they're going to get the fans at the game wherever the location may be this coming Sunday. But, yeah, like you said, those fires are just devastating in Northern California. With the estimate, I got it right here, an estimate of 25,000 people have been driven from their homes. It's a bad time up there in Northern Cali with the air and everything.
Oh, it is. And, I wouldn't be surprised if they just kind of flip-flop games, I guess you could say, and let the Chargers have a home game down there in Carson. And then later on in the season, just flip-flop it to where Raiders and Chargers will meet up in the Bay Area once they get a hold on all that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And, I mean, the past couple of weeks, we've seen it in the StubHub Center that the away team has overshadowed the Chargers fans, and I think it'll basically be a home game for the Raiders with all those fans down there in LA.
Oh, it will for sure. I mean, originally that's where the Raiders are from, so they're always going to have fans that stretch across California, well, the nation, of course, but across Southern California.
Yeah, I think they should look into that and switch in flip-flopping schedule locations for the upcoming games for those two teams. But staying with the Oakland Raiders, another big news out of the AFC West is Derek Carr is coming back this week, somewhat early from the estimate of what they said a couple weeks ago. What do you think, or what do you think about that?
If he's ready, get him out there. It's been really tough for the Raiders. Just starting this season out, it seems like they've underperformed each and every game. They came away with a couple good wins, but with the 3 losses they have it was some pretty close games with the exception of maybe Washington. But it's just these guys. It seems like Seattle as well, but. Or did they play Seattle? Well, I don't know. We'll get into that later. But anyways, it just seems like they're not performing as well as they should be right now. And I think Derek Carr is a key part of that offense. And not having him is only going to make them pick up more losses or, I guess non-quality wins if they do win a game.
Yeah, I mean, you have the Raiders, who were, I think, the second-ranked team in the NFL week 2, week 3. And then ever since that point, they've just been going downhill. And I think that's mainly for Derek Carr not being there these past 2 weeks. The offense has just been underwhelming, disappointing and all that stuff. But if he's ready, I think he should go out there because, I mean, like he said in his interview, I mean, he cares so much about this team and the organization. He just wants to get out there. So if he feels like he's up to point and up to par, go ahead and get him out there and see what they can do on offense.
Yeah, and you consider Derek Carr is obviously more talented than his brother. So having an injury that, potentially he broke his leg last year. So he came back kind of strong this year. But for him to break his back and then come back this quick, you would think a lot of pressure would be on the offensive line to protect him. So that's going to be a key part of their game going into Sunday.
That's a great point, Milo. You got to protect him coming in Sunday. And I think I read somewhere that the San Diego has the third most sacks in the NFL in these first 5 weeks. So, and we all know that line's kind of struggling these past few weeks. So, I mean, they got to step up and protect their franchise quarterback, no doubt.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And while we're on the point of the Oakland and Los Angeles meet, so Melvin Gordon, he got Player of the Week this week, and he had a really exceptional game against the New York Giants. Bad game. We'll get into the injuries and all that later, but he rushed 20 times for 105 yards, caught the ball 6 times for 58 yards, and had 2 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. How do you feel about his performance? Did you get a chance to check him out?
I checked him out, and he looked great. I mean, we've been waiting to see Melvin Gordon pop off one of these weeks. We all know he has the talent, he has the speed, but it's glad to see him back doing his thing like we accustomed to seeing him do. And what do you think? What do you think about it?
He did a great job. I mean, it was the Giants who are 0-5 or were 0-4 like the Chargers last week, but he did a great job. They needed something to happen with their run game. I mean, for him to come in and he's been splitting some of his time with Brandon Oliver, who's injured currently, and I believe will miss the game this week. But he needed a big game like this just to be a factor, running the ball and catching the ball. Helped out, Los Angeles so much, and if he can keep that trend going, that's going to clear up more opportunities for the receivers. And then that's when you get into possibly Mike Williams coming back and the Chargers, at least finishing 8-8. That's still a possibility. Most people wouldn't believe it, but I mean, if they can keep going in an upward trend and start having people get healthy, it'd be a great thing. So Melvin just needs to keep up the great work and just keep running hard, keep getting open in those situations where Rivers can, flip out a short pass to him. And then he needs to continue on with the yards after contact.
Oh, yeah. He's definitely talented and definitely can break some tackles when catching the ball. But like you said, they're 1-4, and the power rankings ranked them, I think, 27th this week. But that record is false in my opinion. We both know this team offense is just lights out when they're just on track, and they were on track last week. And Melvin Gordon, I think, they've been struggling in the rushing game. He has an excellent performance. He gives some help with Phillip Rivers on some screen routes, getting 58 yards. This team's going to be dangerous if he can keep that production up like that.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's already accounted for pretty much a touchdown a week. So if he can keep going in that trend, he'll be set to go, and he just needs to keep performing hard and running hard and being a key to their offense and just allowing other players to get open as well as him getting open.
Oh, yeah, he takes takes a lot of eyes looking at him wherever he is on the field. So, either if he's doing screen routes or even if he's even in the backfield, that's going to make opportunities for Keenan Allen to get open and other wide receivers in that core and put less pressure on Phillip Rivers. But sticking on some key performances for the week, we got Travis Kelce, who's on a concussion protocol. We're not sure if he's going to play this upcoming Sunday. The Chiefs have a big game. I know we were talking about it earlier before the podcast that it's, kind of low key and that people are doubting the Steelers coming into Arrowhead Stadium. But do you think Travis Kelce is going to make that big of a difference for the Kansas City if he's not playing?
I mean, if the game follows what we've seen last year between these two teams in the playoffs, I don't think he'll make too much of a difference. I know it was a surprising move to me that, Kansas City went down to just having 3 tight ends, I believe, at the beginning of the season. So not having Kelsey right now is big, but against a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers who play really well and just match up well with the Chiefs, I don't think he'll be too much of a factor. That having him on the field does draw some attention, but it's all going to be on Alex Smith and getting Kareem Hunt going, and also seeing if you can strike down the field early with Tyreek Hill, and also Tyreek Hill on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely have the weapons without Kelsey. That's no doubt. But, I mean, Kelsey, I mean, he's having a great season. He's had some up and down weeks. And, I mean, they've looked fine without him, producing the way he did last week with about 100 yards in the receiving game. But you got Kareem Hunt, who, is making it look easy getting 100 yards each week. You got Tyreek Hill, like you said. Chris Conley, we'll get to that later, but he's out for the season. But, I mean, you look at all the other productions from people in the receiving core. You got West, the number 35 running back. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he made a big impact with 2 touchdowns this last week. So I think they'll be fine, and I can't wait to tune in on Sunday to check out that game.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, especially with Kansas City coming off a big win against the Houston Texans, where, what can we say about Deshaun Watson? That kid is just bloomed into one of the best players on the field in recent weeks. And, he had his chance, definitely. But, Kansas City was able to come out on top and pull through with the victory.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson gave the Chiefs a run for their money. I mean, it looked like the Chiefs had it easy going until that second half hit, and Deshaun Watson just totally exploded on offense, having a total of 5 touchdowns. But, dude, the kid just looks great. It reminds me of the RG3 rookie year where he just dominated and defenses just couldn't stop him. So kudos to Deshaun Watson, and kudos to the Chiefs for pulling it through and keeping the lead and going to 5-0 and representing the AFC West.
Yeah, and staying on the Chiefs, it's been really interesting with them because, with the exception of a game or two, they have barely pulled through, I guess you could say, in a lot of aspects. And it's been, their defense has been a little shoddy here and there. Their offense has been a little shoddy here and there. But it seems like they get going at the right time, and they're able to pull through, if it's even by 2 points or if it's by, 10 plus points. So, the Chiefs are playing hard. They're a hard team to match up against. But this week against Pittsburgh, it's going to be a whole different story, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, you look at their defense and where they rank in the NFL, and it's 27th overall. So you're like, man, how are they 5-0? And then you go to their offense, and they're the second best offense in the league, and they're the second best rushing offense in the league. And so you got to give credit to that rushing game with Kareem Hunt and from getting his name. 1 minute. What's his name from? Actually, no, never mind. I'm thinking someone totally different. My bad. You got to give credit to Kareem Hunt, just making it look easy.
Well, one of the unsung heroes for running the ball in Kansas City right now is Alex Smith, and he's been able to, if a play doesn't happen the right way, this guy rolls out, and people forget he's not a Tom Brady or a Peyton Manning. He's not just going to run down the field, at 2 miles per hour and slide as soon as somebody gets within 5 yards of him. He actually has some legs on him, and has helped Kansas City in many ways to, keep a drive going or get a first down when, they needed it.
Yeah, I mean, he rushed, 5 times for 19 yards last week. But like you said, he just makes key first downs on a 3rd and long or a 3rd and short and just keeps the drive alive. And you got to give kudos to him because he's just playing outstanding football right now. And then you also got to give credit to Andy Reid. He just has total control of that offense. And then just those formations they run, they just look like a team that just can't be stopped, like the 2007 New England Patriots. They just they just keep going and going and going, and that's amazing to watch.
Yeah, and highlighting this game coming up, it's obviously like, with the Andy Reid factor, he's coaching so well. Alex Smith is playing so well. The one thing that has helped the Chiefs is they have not had a turnover since Kareem Hunt's first down or first carry of the season, his first carry of his career. So, I mean, for these guys to not have a turnover, that's a big factor in why they're winning games. But I will say this. I think that Pittsburgh will get them to turn the ball over a few times, whether it's by interception or by a fumble.
Well, I did not realize that, but that's a crazy stat to have, that your only turnover was the first play of the season, and then you go 5 other games or 4 other games of just playing perfect football, basically. So, I mean, kudos to Alex Smith because he runs that team, and kudos to Kareem Hunt for not allowing people to strip him in his rookie season.
Yeah, it's they're playing some amazing football, and it's going to be a great game this Sunday. Their game will be starting. It's in Kansas City, and it'll be at 2:25 Mountain Time or 4:25 Eastern Time, where Cade's at, of course, 1:25. So that's definitely a game you should tune into. It might be the best game of the week.
So yeah, how about we just recap the Chiefs and Texans game, even though we did it a little bit right now, but let's what's your overall opinion about the whole game?
So, I mean, the Chiefs did an outstanding job throughout the game. They played, great football in the first half, offensively, and even some in the second half to keep the game, out of striking distance for Houston and Deshaun Watson. For me, the thing that keeps showing up is just the inconsistencies, whether it's, not getting production on the offense, certain quarters or certain plays when they need to, or whether the defense just, lets guys run through it all day. But at the end of the day, they're a good enough team to where, they can overcome those small differences.
Yeah, they are definitely that team that can just overcome them because they just hold on to the ball for so long, it seems like, especially with the running game and Kareem Hunt. You see the possession time, KC had at 38 minutes compared to Houston's 21. And it's not like the yards were different from Houston to KC, but Kansas City just controls the game. And yeah, I thought the game was over at the end of the first half. It was 23-7. KC just exploded on offense that second quarter. Alex Smith just looked so comfortable in that offense, having 3 touchdowns on the game. But as soon as the second half hit, Deshaun Watson woke up, and it just became a ball game. And I want to give a shout out to Tyreek Hill, man. He did a great job. I think he had a big third down, a 3rd and 16 in the third quarter, where he caught a 38-yard long pass to extend that drive, and I think that was the closing factor in that game.
Yeah, another thing that helped out, since we're on Tyreek Hill, is in the fourth quarter, you had, I guess you could say, Houston kept inching closer, so they brought the game actually within 6 points, and then Kansas City was able to score, took it up to 12. And then I think what really closed the game out for them was just the fact that Tyreek Hill went 82 yards for a punt return.
Oh.
So, I mean, that guy is truly a weapon. He's, one of the faster players in the league. He's small, so, kind of deceptive when he runs by you. But that was a huge factor in why these guys won the game. It seems like every time Kansas City is sort of heading to have their backs against the wall, something comes through for them. So, credit to the coaching staff, credit to the players for just being at the right place at the right time and playing some knowledgeable football.
Yeah, they seem like they never panic, and they just keep to the game plan. And I think that's why they're so effective is, they got leaders like Justin Houston on defense or Alex Smith on offense to the calm everybody down in times of panic, especially like we saw in the second half where Deshaun Watson was just on point with Denard Hopkins and Fuller. But yeah, I forgot about the Tyreek Hill punt return for the touchdown. That definitely took, the souls right out of the Texans and, shifted the momentum back to Kansas City to close the game.
Yeah, and the biggest loss of the day, of course, for Kansas City is the fact that they did lose Chris Conley, and he's out for the season, right?
Yes, he is out for the season. I think he ruptured his Achilles.
Yeah, so I mean that's going to be something that hurts them, especially having Travis Kelce with going through concussion protocol. You lose Chris Conley, so you're down to Ross Travis. You also have Demetrius Harris. Albert Wilson will have to step up for sure at the receiver position. But, they lost a big factor right there in Chris Conley, who had a decent game, 3 receptions for 46 yards. So, it's going to hurt them in the long run. But seeing how they have handled even having Eric Berry, who is one of their team leaders, out since pretty much week 1 against the Patriots, they've handled it really well and been able to keep winning games. So I'm sure they'll adjust to losing Conley.
Yeah, it's a horrible loss for Chris Conley going out. He was like the third factor in that 1-2 punch that Hunt and Kelce have created, or Tyreek Hill, that for that matter. So basically the fourth factor, and he could easily be a first factor on a different team on an offense. So it's sad to see him go, but I feel like these Chiefs have these underrated, behind the scenes players that will just come up week to week and just fill the stat sheets like you saw last week with West and Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, they have some depth, and they've been surprising everybody. I mean, I was kind of skeptical about what they could do on defense, and it seems like their defense is coming through at the right time. So, I use your words, kudos to them. They're really showing up and making the AFC West look really good right now.
Oh yeah, they are definitely representing the AFC West, and we'll see how longer it can go with the Steelers coming to town. How do you plan that? How do you think that game will go on a 1:25 p.m. on Sunday?
So I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I would like to. Not a fan of the Chiefs, coming from Denver, of course, but I just think that the Chiefs are gonna get shocked this week. I actually check out our Pick'em column, our Pick'em article every week on ArmchairAllAmericans.com, but I was one that picked Houston last week, so Chiefs kind of keep proving me wrong. So let's see if they can prove me wrong this week, but I think that Pittsburgh's going to pull it out by a hair.
Yeah, I don't want to go against the Chiefs, and I'm not a big Chief fan. I'm originally from the Bay Area, so I'm a big Oakland Raiders fan. And I don't want to go against the Steelers either, but I think Big Ben, after how many interceptions did he have last week? Like 5 or something?
Yeah, something like that. He's up to 7 on the season right now.
So, coming off a bad week, I think Ben Roethlisberger, will come to play on Sunday, especially in that tough environment in Arrowhead Stadium. So I'm gonna agree with you. The Steelers are gonna go in and win by a hair, especially as you see on their offense their passing offense being ranked number 1 in the league. Actually, no, I'll take that back. Their passing defense being number 1 ranked in the league. So Alex Smith is going to have a lot of trouble going against that secondary.
And one last thing I'd like to bring up before we move on to our next game is you have Antonio Brown, and sure, the only way that you're going to shut down Antonio Brown or even think about it is if you shadow him with a safety up top, and then you put Marcus Peters on him the whole game. Because if Antonio Brown even sees Terrence Mitchell across from him, a couple times a game, I'm pretty sure he'll toast him for a few touchdowns. So look for Antonio Brown to have a big game against that secondary if Marcus Peters doesn't shadow him all day.
That's a great point. I mean, you see his stats on the season, 40 receptions already for 545 yards. Like, this dude is a threat down the field. So, Peters and the safeties, they better get ready, because you also have to have a game plan for Martavius Bryant and Jesse James, because this wide receiver core is having a great season so far. And don't forget Le'Veon Bell in the backfield too.
Yeah, I mean they're loaded on weapons. So Kansas City's going to have their hands full, as will the Pittsburgh Steelers defense as well. So they'll have their hands full, and it's just a offensive clash. One hand you got Pittsburgh, who just keeps turning the ball over, kind of started slow. Other one you got Kansas City, who doesn't turn the ball over and started fast. So this probably will be the game of the week.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. So let's head on from the most offensive exciting game this past week onto probably the most, if not second to third most surprising game this week, is the Ravens and Raiders. What's your first thought about that, Milo?
With Derek Carr coming back, like we talked about a moment ago, that's going to help them so much. And it is the Chargers and Raiders this week, actually.
Oh, yeah. I was saying the Ravens and Raiders.
Yeah, so past that point, you got Derek Carr coming back. Marshawn Lynch, he's had his ups and downs, but I think the return of Derek Carr is going to motivate this team. They have a 1-4 Chargers team coming in that struggled on both sides of the ball, with the exception of the Chargers leading the league in sacks. But it's the game could go either way. We talked about this; it could go either way, but I think this game surprisingly might turn out to be a shootout. So it might actually be a high-scoring game, and most people aren't going to think it will be. They're going to think, oh, here goes the damaged, frail Raiders, playing against Los Angeles, who just moved from their home, barely won its first game against another team that is underperforming. But this is the AFC West, and when you play a divisional opponent, you play your hardest.
Yeah, this game should go past a lot of people's prediction about it. You got Oakland being a 60-point favorite, but I think these two teams are as evenly matched as can get. AFC West game too, so it should be pretty good. How about let's talk about the Ravens versus the Raiders.
So Ravens and Raiders, that game, it was kind of what you would expect from the Raiders without having Derek Carr. They just came up short. EJ Manuel, 13 to 26, 50% passing, only 159 yards, 1 touchdown. And then Marshawn Lynch, 12 carries, 43 yards, 1 touchdown. So I mean, it was one of those games where it just seemed like the offense couldn't stay on the field long enough. When they did get their chances to score, it was, a little bit too late. So, hopefully it'll change all this week for them having Carr back.
Yeah, the game was surprising for me. It was just the first quarter. It was, I didn't tune in for the first kickoff. So I was about like 10 minutes late, and when I tuned in, it was 14-0. And you just see, the flash of Joe Flacco going to Mike Wallace deep for the first play, and then you see the fumble from James Cook, or Joe. From Jared Cook, my bad. Fumble from him, and they return it for a touchdown, and it's 14-0. And I think, like you said, they just after that they were shook, and the offense couldn't stay on long enough, and all that. So they ended up losing. But props to EJ Manuel. I mean, he did a great job for coming in for a week and having no turnovers and providing a couple touchdowns for him.
Yeah, that's what they really needed. It seemed like, just all the worst stuff was happening to them at the, most inconvenient time. As you mentioned, Jimmy Smith running back that 47-yard fumble from Jared Cook. It happened early in the game and put them in a 14-0 hole. So coming back from, a lead that early, I mean, few people could do it. Example, Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. But, it seemed like all the pieces for Oakland just weren't there, and not having their leader definitely had a big impact on it.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, I think they had a great rushing game. You see Lynch going for 43 yards with a touchdown, Jalen Richards going for 37 yards, and then Manuel and Olawale for combined 108 yards as a team. But then you go to the receiving core, and, it's basically just Crabtree. And then you see Amari Cooper down there, who was an elite wide receiver in this league, only have 8 yards on the day. So, I mean, it's frustrating being a Raiders fan, seeing, the struggles in the secondary, in the receiving core from a year ago where they were just, they couldn't be stopped. But I think Derek Carr coming back is going to, lift up the momentum, and hopefully they can show out this week.
Yeah, and just looking at the statistics for the game, 245 yards total offense. They had the one turnover. They actually had the ball for 26 minutes, just over 26 minutes, and got 15 first downs. But just watching the game, knowing that you're a Raiders fan, knowing a few Raiders fans myself, it did not seem like the offense was on the field for 26 minutes.
No, not at all. I mean, they'd have these long drives when EJ Manuel was on and the offense was clicking, but you go back to all the other drives where Marquette King is kicking it off, punting it, and I think I'm not sure how many punts he had on the day, but it seemed like he was out there. And that brings me up to, a controversial call coming from Jack Del Rio. With 8 minutes left in the game, he punts it from the 44-yard line in the Ravens territory. 4th and 3. I believe they should have went for it because their defense was, lackluster all game. But what do you think about that, Milo?
So with that Jack Del Rio call, it's funny that he didn't learn from a famous Super Bowl that happened a while back. If you have Marshawn Lynch, give him the ball. Give him the ball. Yeah. Even if he came up a yard short, you're already down in the hole. So, you know what? What do you got to lose? You don't have your starting quarterback. Your team hasn't been playing as well. Sometimes you got to make those gutsy calls and just bring that fire to your team to want to win a game. Punting the ball like that in their territory, 3 yards to go, kind of waving the white flag like, hey, all right, well, we'll just give you the ball back and hope our defense can stop you. No, they should have ran the ball, and that game could have been a lot closer, depending on the results of that ball. And we know King is a great punter, could have put it in a nice place for them to get it.
Yeah, I think he just had too much trust in the defense with for whatever reason it may be, but coming from a Raiders fan, they just looked horrible this last game, especially up front in the rushing. The Ravens and the clinic the Ravens gave to them, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day for them. But it goes back to that punt. They punted off of 4 and 3, should have ran it. I agree with you with Marshawn Lynch. But after that drive, the Ravens go all the way down, run down all the clock. And I don't even think they threw a pass that drive. They just ran it. Ended up with a field goal and put the game out of reach for the Raiders. So I think it's just a bunch of, just bad coaching, and then the injury to Derek Carr, and then just Amari Cooper not showing up for the offense. It's just a bunch of bad things happening in a row for the Raiders right now in this part of the season.
Yeah, they're going to have to get it together quick, especially, facing the divisional opponent this week. And, you're looking at the Chargers. They're obviously haven't been playing great football, but they're equipped. We talked about this. They're equipped to come in there and beat the Raiders. So it could turn out to be a really, really, bad game for Oakland, to the point where, if Los Angeles wins this game, Oakland and Los Angeles will be tied 2-4 at the bottom of the AFC West.
Yeah, I mean, it's an important game for Oakland. You got Derek Carr coming back. People still believe this team is an elite team in the NFL, even could be on top of the AFC West. So, you lose the game, like you said, they're tied with Los Angeles at 2-4. So it's not a do or die game, I believe, but it's almost a do or die game. Oakland fans have their finger on the panic button right now, and it's a great opportunity because you see Kansas City having a difficult team and the Steelers coming in. So if they win this game, it's just inching them closer to the top spot in the AFC West.
Yeah, and one thing you have to look at is the schedule coming up for Oakland. I mean, after this game, they have a short week. So Thursday night football against Kansas City, at home. And then you travel all the way across country. You do get the long break in between the 10 days. And you travel across country and play the Bills. And so, that after this game, it's kind of a grueling stretch until, up into the second quarter of the season. And so, yeah, they need to definitely get it together and just perform their best and win this. If they can win this game and even go in and surprise Kansas City, they could set themselves on top to overtake the division again.
Yeah, I 100% believe you in that point. They just need to win this game against Los Angeles, get their confidence back, get everything on the right page, because Kansas City is coming, with full force that Thursday night game. That's a Super Bowl contender at this point in the season. So this next 2-game stretch is important for them. And I think that break after the Thursday night football game will be good for them too, going all the way to Buffalo. Like, that Denver had struggles with them early in the season.
Yeah. And I mean, the Bills have a great defense. So, their offense isn't that great, which is fortunate for, Oakland when they do meet up with them. But, just looking at how high-powered the Chiefs team is offensively and how dangerous they could be on defense and special teams. And then you transition to a team that just has a really sturdy defense. So, they're going to have to make a statement in this game. And, people think it's against the lowly Chargers, but just remember it's a division game.
It's a division game, and you can't count the Chargers out, just like, maybe the Giants did this last week where, they were throwing with 3 minutes left in the game, having the lead. So I don't know what they were thinking. But you see them come back, and the Chargers finally got their first win. So how do you feel about the game against the Giants last week for the Chargers?
Oh man, that was a crazy game. Either way it went, I kind of felt the Chargers will win, and but yeah, either way it went, it just seemed like whoever wins good for them. But I think the Chargers finally got a little bit of a jolt, I guess you could say, in their team, and they know what it takes to what their schedule coming up as well. They know they have to improve, and they know they're going to have to do a good job to even consider reaching 500 at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think this was a great win for the Chargers, a much-needed win too. Going 0-4 against the Giants and traveling all the way to New York. It's great that they pulled it out, and it's great that they pulled it out with the close game, because they've missed opportunities early in the season to capitalize and, put some more wins in that win column. And the Chargers just did great. The offense was lackluster throughout the game. They had a good first quarter. Second quarter looked horrible, but, it became a shootout in the third quarter. And, the defense got some turnovers late. I think 2 turnovers in the last 5 minutes. They got a fumble and an interception. So they just put themselves in position to win, and they finally, got the victory.
Yeah, and they needed it at this point in the season. You have the Raiders this week. If they can win against the Raiders, they finish this second quarter of the season with the Broncos and the Patriots. And then on top of that, they start the third part of the season, or the third quarter of the season, against the surprisingly hot Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. So they're at a point in their schedule where they needed a win, or else they were possibly looking like they're, in the run for the #1 overall draft pick, which they still are, but, they needed this win really bad.
Yeah, they did. And it just seems like all these AFC West teams just have tough schedules this year. So, I mean, if you can pull out a win, late in the game, even if the game wasn't looking good or wasn't going your way most of it, that's great. A win's a win, right? So, yeah. And I want to shout out to Nick Novak, man, coming in as a Charger again, getting signed this last week. The Chargers giving away Young Hoku, giving him to waivers. But, yeah, he went 2 for 2 and gave him 3 extra points, and he just went perfect. And that's what the Chargers were looking for in a close game,
Yeah, they needed a kicker that was going to, win them games or help them win games. I mean, you look at their schedule. First week, they lost to Denver by a field goal. We all remember that, blocked field goal. So then you go into Miami. They lost by 2 points. Kansas City, they lost by 2 touchdowns. It's a whole different story. But then they played the Eagles, and they actually only lost by 2 points to the Eagles. So it's been a lot of close games to where if they had Nick Novak at those times, we could have been looking at a 4-1 Chargers team.
Yeah, that's how close it is in the NFL. Like, it could be, the Chargers going against the Chiefs for the #1 spot. It's just that's how unfortunate they have been in the first quarter and these last 2 games in the season. But Phillip Rivers, I think he did a great job this last week too, coming out with 258 yards, 3 touchdowns, making key throws late in the game, and just spreading, his receiving core, giving them tons of receptions. Keenan Allen ended up with 4. Melvin Gordon ended up with 6. Hunter Henry ended up with 3. He's just the leading force on this offense, and I think he had a great game.
Yeah, and he needed to. Phillip Rivers is an outstanding quarterback, and he reminds me, he's not exactly like him, but he reminds me of like a Brett Favre, where he's Brett Favre, where he's, he wants to throw the ball downfield. He'll take the risk, and, has one of the funkiest throwing motions I've seen, but is able to still get the ball downfield and get his receivers in position to make big plays. That just seems like it hasn't happened as much this season.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it just hasn't happened for Phillip Rivers, and it's just been unlucky for the first couple games, or the first 5 games, my bad. But how about the New York Giants? Just the unluckiness with them too. It's just you think the Chargers are unlucky. The Giants are just a whole nother level of unlucky.
Yeah, and I mean, they're heading into Denver. They're playing the #1 defense this week, and they don't have Odell Beckham. They don't have Brandon Marshall, receiver Brandon Marshall, by the way, and they don't have it's looking like they really, really won't have Sterling Shepard as well. So these guys are in trouble. I mean, they actually went out this week. They signed practice squad guys to their roster. They signed, guys that got let go during the preseason to their practice squad, a couple guys onto the active roster. So, like, when you look at the roster right now, you're just like, who are half of these guys? Who is this? Who is that? So they have a lot lot of woes going on right now, and headed into Denver where they're going to face the number one defense. It doesn't look pretty.
It does not look pretty, and it's in prime time too. Sunday Night Football on NBC. Everybody's going to be watching, so those practice squad players better be ready, and Eli Manning better be ready as well. But this team's just so unlucky, man. Like I said, they had 2 big turnovers late in the game. They had the lead. It was looking like the New York Giants weren't going to get made fun of finally for a week. But, they just end up doing, like, what they shouldn't be doing. Like, you just get so frustrated watching this team. But, kudos to the Chargers for capitalizing on those mistakes. But the Giants better be ready, like you said, going against the Broncos, the number 1 defense, and that offense at Mile High Stadium, because it'll be crazy.
I mean, you look at Eli Manning, and he's by all means not having a horrible year for what he's worked with. I mean, the guy is 100. He's thrown 202 passes, completed 137 of them, has almost 13,500 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The only problem is just that team, the whole team together just isn't performing well. And now that you have lost your top 3 receivers, it's not looking pretty. But there is one thing I will point out, and you never know what will happen in an NFL game. Anybody knows that. So this game actually looked for it to be an upset alert as well.
Yeah, you don't know if a rising star can come out of a practice squad and shock the whole nation with them beating the Denver Broncos. But you also got to look at their defense. They're not ranked too high on the charts. I think Rogers Cromartie is suspended this upcoming week. So, the defense is looking a little bit trouble for the Giants as well.
Yeah, no, they're going to have to push hard. They're going to have to get in Simeon's head, make him frantic and want to get rid of the ball quick. They're going to have to stop the run because C.J. Anderson has just been pretty much killing it this year. Only has 1 touchdown, running the ball, but still has 330 yards after 4 games. So just shy of almost 100 yards a game for him. But, yeah, especially not having Rogers Cromartie, you have, some good receivers there in Demaryius Thomas and what's his name? I always forget it.
Demaryius Thomas,
Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders.
I'm Denver fan. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Denver. I will admit that I should have known that off the top of my head. But yeah, you lose your number 1 cornerback, and you have to put up with those 2 guys who, last year went for 1,000 yards apiece. So a big thing here is look for Demaryius Thomas to get open, and he could see his first touchdown of the season.
Man, that's surprising that, he hasn't had a touchdown yet because, I think he's having a great season with Trevor Siemian and that offense. You don't want to count out the 2-time Super Bowl MVP Eli Manning, but, the odds are against him this game. But even being a Raiders fan, man, I'm excited to see the Denver Broncos come out of their bye week and, put on a performance because that offense looks great at home. Trevor Siemian looks more comfortable at home. And then that defense with Von Miller and them boys, that's a team to watch for. So it should be a good game. I'm hoping it's a good game, but I'm going to put the edge to Denver in this one.
Yeah, I will too. And, Denver's going to have to show their best. They're going into pretty much a grueling schedule. They're facing the Chargers again next week, in Carson. So, it'd probably be a home game for Denver again. But, they already had a close game with the Chargers week 1. But then they'll have the Chiefs right after that. That's a Monday night game. They have the Eagles right after that. And then they finish up that second quarter of the season with they start the third quarter of the season with a showdown at home Sunday Night Football, I believe, against the Patriots.
Yeah, they have a tough schedule coming up, just like all these teams in the AFC West. But this team's for real, man. They're my dark horse going into the playoffs. Hopefully, I mean, it's a little early to talk about playoffs, but I think they'll be in there.
Yeah.
But, this deep – yeah, go ahead.
Oh, and I was just going to mention, I mean, there still is the possibility that we might see 3 AFC West teams in the playoffs. So Denver definitely is a dark horse. Nobody wanted to look at them and say this team for sure is going to make the playoffs. Their run defense, sucks. Their running backs aren't getting yardage. Trevor Siemian, who knows what this guy can do. And they've kind of been proving everybody wrong.
Yeah, that rushing game with Anderson and Charles is just the 1-2 punch. Like I've added these last couple weeks on the podcast. They are dangerous in the run game. Trevor Siemian, when he looks confident and when he's getting, good blocking from his line up front, he's, a great quarterback. I'm not going to say he's an elite quarterback, but he gets the job done. He reminds me of like an Alex Smith type quarterback that's overlooked because his numbers aren't, with the Big Bens and the Aaron Rodgers. But this defense, like you said, Brandon Marshall, Von Miller, they are just a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and you also got to look at it. I mean, let's see. For this game, I'm not sure, but okay, so Shane Ray's still out. But you look at it, that guy will be coming back later on this season. They're not playing with all their personnel, I guess you could say. Not yet, at least. So this defense can even get better once they get some key people back.
See, that's just more great news for the Denver Broncos because they're not at full strength, like you said. And yeah, I just think this defense is just too good. I think Von Miller, he's going to be my player to watch for the MVP for the defense of the AFC West is coming up week. But you can't count out Brandon Marshall, Aqib Talib, because these boys know how to play football, and that's why they're ranked the number 1 defense in the whole NFL.
Yeah, and that's considering the fact that the no-fly zone has, allowed some flights to come through. So, if they can get that down and get back up to number 1 on pass defense, this defense might be one of the greatest of all time and surpass what they did a couple years back when they won the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah. The dominant performance they had on the Panthers, it was just insane to watch. But so, yeah, my MVP for this coming up week would be Von Miller on the defensive end. I think he'll have a couple sacks against the Giants that, how shaky the Giants look, like we mentioned earlier. What's your defensive player coming up week?
My defensive player of the week, that's a good one. I'm going to have to go with Melvin Ingram from Los Angeles. He's been playing lights out defense, been getting in there for tackles, getting in the backfield, causing, he's just wrecking the field. So this guy, same prediction. You have a couple sacks, maybe a couple tackles for a loss, good amount of tackles, and maybe even force a fumble or two.
Yeah, I can totally see him doing that. He's been a force to reckon with, like you said, on the defensive end. The Chargers defense, they can be shaky at times, but they can also be great at times. They have signs of greatness, and, he leads the way on that defense.
Yeah, definitely. Who's your offensive player of the week?
Offensive player of the week, the Broncos are coming fresh off a bye week. I went with Trevor Siemian earlier in the year, but I'm going to go with Demaryius Thomas. He's touchdownless through the first 5 games, and I think he's going to have a great game against that Giants defense and just expose them. So I'm guessing over 100 yards and a pair of touchdowns. How about you?
I literally, you read my mind. I was about to say the same thing. This guy is due for a big game, and he definitely can have it against the Giants. I mean, if we can see the Demaryius Thomas that we've come to know, he's gonna surpass 100 yards or at least be near it, and he'll have a couple touchdowns. And I think Siemian will have a great game as well. But I think Demaryius will be the X factor to Siemian having a great game.
Oh yeah, I believe that too. It should be some great games coming up. You know, you got that AFC West battle this week, and then prime time for the Broncos and Giants, and then the overlooked game, but possibly the best game that's coming up weekend, the Chiefs and Steelers. So keep your eyes out for it.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of football for the AFC West. So, tune in and watch all you can.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely tune into all those games. They're key games. We're getting to the middle of the season. The standings are starting to show. So every team needs a win right now. They can't afford to lose, except for if you're the Chiefs. 5-0.
Yeah, no, I mean, if obviously Denver is projected to win this week, so they can end up being 4-1. If Kansas City loses this week, that puts Denver within a half game of overtaking. So, every team's going to want to win this week. But, I think the biggest game this week for any AFC West team would be Oakland, so they can get back into contention for the AFC West crown.
Yeah, I mean, beginning of the season they were looking like a Super Bowl contender, and now they're sitting third at 2-3. 2 games behind Denver and then 3 games behind Kansas City. So it's time for them to start making moves, even though they have Derek Carr coming off the injury. It's time to start, climbing up the charts again. So I think they're the number 1 team that needs a win badly.
That is for sure. We're gonna wrap things up today. Tune in next week. We'll have another episode for you guys. AFC West show. From Armchair All Americans, West 'em Up. We'll do our reviews or recaps. We'll do our previews for the next week and any relevant news. So once again, my name's Milo.
My name's Cade. Check out Milo on Armchair All Americans. He writes some great articles. And then check us out on Twitter at West 'em Up Podcast. I'll see you guys next week.
All right. Have a good one, folks.